Welcome back to Eye on Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome the legendary John McClain. John's in his 48th year covering the NFL in Houston and is currently writing columns at HoustonTexans.com. I should also note that John is a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. Welcome, John.
Karen, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we have a contest this weekend, Sunday, between the Texans and the Patriots, and it looks to me like two teams going in two different directions. Texans are 4-1, Patriots 1-4. You're pretty solidified at quarterback. Tell me about the start that the Texans have gotten off to. I know there've been a lot of one-score games. But I think it's a good thing that kind of they've prevailed in these type of games.
First of all, Karen, the Texans have never won at Gillette Stadium. And I thought if they were ever going to do it, would have been in 2016 when first game when Jacoby Brissett, a rookie, was playing in place of the suspended Tom Brady. And not only did the Patriots win, they shut out the Texans. And they played again in the postseason. Of course, Brady won. But if they're ever going to win a game in Foxborough, you would
This is
think
it.
this would be it. And you mentioned the close games. They've won by 2, 6, 4, and 3, which is a trend that started last year when D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud were in their first seasons. They had 7 of their 10 victories by 7 or fewer points. They had 3 of their 7 losses by 3 or fewer points. And they had 10 games overall decided in the last 36 seconds or overtime. And I thought for a rookie quarterback and a rookie coach, rookie play caller, rookie quarterback coach, it was impressive that they weren't folding in those kind of situations, which says a lot about the coaching staff, also says a lot about Stroud, who led them every time because their running game has been pathetic for over a decade. They haven't had 1,100-yard rushers since Arian Foster, haven't had 1,000-yard rushers since Carlos Hyde in 2019, and coaches and players and systems come and go, and they still can't run the football. So Stroud has to bail them out. Their defense is the fastest defense I've seen the Texans ever have. D'Amico Ryans, who makes the defensive calls, is all about speed. I don't think they have a 230-pound linebacker. I think they all weigh in the 225 to 229 range, and they're fast. So they have one thing, they are terrible on first and second down. Bobby Slowick continues to call running plays. They're awful. They are among the 2 or 3 worst teams on first and second down, and they're second and third and fourth down. And that's because that's when they put all the pressure on Stroud. And teams have been getting a lot of pressure on him because their offensive line, they just have not had a good offensive line in so long, despite using number 1 pick, spending big money in free agency for a guy like Shaq Mason at right guard. They've got 2 number 1s at tackle, 1 number 1 at left guard, and number 2 at center, and they still can't put it together. So it's all on Stroud, and they put a lot of pressure on him, Karen, and so far he's been able to handle it.
It's interesting. Offensive line problems. The Patriots don't have any of those top picks in their arsenal. They have guys that they're picking off the street, and I would suspect that the Patriots are a little worse rated as an offensive line than the Texans. Although I know CJ's been sacked like 14 times, if I'm right. Um, have you seen kind of a leap from year one to year two with him in spite of not having a run game and not having the best offensive line?
Not really. Everybody else will say they have, but the fact is he's playing like he played at the end of last season. He started 0-2 in his career, and I thought, oh my God, I should have picked him to win 4
Hmm.
games instead of 6. And then they beat Jacksonville by 20 and Pittsburgh by 18, and all of a sudden he started playing well. He's very well coached, and he accepts the coaching, and he's like a sponge. Now, they ran the ball great in the first game when Joe Mixon, their new addition, was healthy, 159 yards. They had 213 rushing, and I thought, oh my God, this offense has turned the corner with the running game. Then Mixon got hurt by a hip drop tackle. Their backup, Damian Pierce, has been out with a hamstring since that first game. So they're playing at Cam Akers, who was signed off the street early in camp, Daria Gumbawali, who is a good special teams player, and all of a sudden he's helping on third down. They let him start Sunday, average 3 yards a carry. And I go back and watch the games, and they get beat at the line of scrimmage too often. One time when Stroud had perfect protection was he dropped back. He had time in the pocket. He threw a deep pass to Nico Collins for a 67-yard touchdown in which Collins pulled a hamstring, and I don't expect him to play in this game. I don't expect Joe Mixon to play either.
Hmm.
And that was perfect. And you start thinking, God, if he had protection like that more often, what could he do? But most of the time he has to throw on the run. And he's good at it, and he makes some great plays. But I guess he's always been accurate. You know, he has three interceptions. He had only five all of last year. One of them was tipped, wasn't his fault, but two were. He got strip sacked Sunday uh, against Buffalo. That's the first time that's happened. And yet they still won. He makes the plays in clutch situations. And their kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, he's already kicked 8 of 9 field goals at 50 plus yards, and most he'd ever had in his career was six. He's never attempted more than six, and they rely on him a lot. It's like if you cross midfield, okay, we're going to let Fairbairn kick it. And the 59-yarder he made with no time left, that's the second game he's won one with a bomb. It hit the net, could have gone for 65. So they have a really good kicker they rely on. And they were fortunate to win that game. They've been fortunate to win games because D'Amico Ryans knows they have yet to play a full game like they did in the playoffs against Cleveland when they scored 45 points, but they're still winning. Their loss was at Minnesota. They were terrible from the get-go, and they just kind of said we flushed it and moved on. So they're used to playing close games, and their defense last year they were, I think, plus 14. Right now they haven't had a turnover in the last three games, a takeaway, and I
Hmm.
think they're -3, and that's important. You can't run. You're not forcing turnovers, and that's Karen, from experience, that's a bad recipe for disaster, but they've been able to win. And I kept thinking they're going to blow this Buffalo game after playing their best half of the season and leading 17-3. Oh, and they're the most penalized team in the league. That's never happened. Their offensive line, besides having trouble run blocking, pass protecting, they commit too many penalties, usually the pre-snap, which drive coaches crazy. So they were the most penalized team in the league, didn't have one in the first half. And everybody's like, wow, they turned the corner on those penalties after all that work. Then they committed 7 for 65 yards in the second half. And so who knows what team's going to show up at Gillette Stadium when it comes to penalties, no running game, and no forcing any takeaways.
Hmm. It's kind of the same with the Patriots. All of a sudden, they were pretty much penalty free through the first four games, and then they had 12 accepted of 14 penalties against Miami last week. So talk about shooting yourself in the foot. But I have to say, watching the defense, D'Amico Ryan's defense, I mean, they forced Josh Allen, Buffalo's Josh Allen, into one of the worst games of his career. I think he only had 9 completions. And that 59-yarder by Fairburn, it won that game for them. Um, you were talking about the speed of that defense. Is that mostly in the linebacker group in secondary, or is it from top to bottom?
It's everywhere but the defensive tackles, and they've been hurt running up the middle. It's strange, Karen. Last year they set a franchise record with sacks, and they went from 32nd to 6th against the run in D'Amico Ryan's first season. And their two defensive tackles, Sheldon Rankins, Malik Collins, played really well. They combined for 11 sacks, played the run well. They traded Collins to the 49ers for a seventh round pick. And he offered Sheldon Rankins like a $3 million raise, but the Bengals offered him more, so he left. So you're changing out your two tackles, and they brought in journeyman Foley Fatukasi, who's been real good. Mario Edwards Jr. has bounced around the NFL like a pinball. Tim Settle, another guy that's bounced around. Then they got two guys that weren't drafted, Khalil Davis and Kurt Heinisch in the middle. And on the ends, they got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. And those guys are both super fast.
Yeah.
And they chase from sideline to sideline. Sometimes they set the edge, sometimes they don't. But their linebackers, especially Isaiah Alshire, who was with D'Amico as a backup with the 49ers. Then last year, he signed a 1 year deal with former 49ers personnel director Rand Carthon, who'd gone to the Titans as GM and then started, played every snap, led him in tackles. They wanted to sign him to a long-term deal. He goes, nope, I'm going back to be reunited with D'Amico. And in two plays the other day, they used the Tampa 2, and he was running down the middle of the field, breaking up passes to tight ends. And when I see him run, they wore new uniform Sunday for the first time, call it H-Town Blue, and I had trouble reading the numbers. And when I would see him running, I'd think that's a safety, but it was not. It was him. And they are super quick. They have a rookie corner, Kamari Laster, who's been great. And then Derek Stingley's been playing great for the last 2 years. And their safety, Jalen Petrie's good. They're good on the back end. Patriots will see a rookie, Kalen Bullitt from USC, third round pick. He ran a 4.43 at the combine. He's 6'3", and he's skinny. He looks like a basketball player. That kid can run. He's here because of his range. So they're good in the secondary. They're I guess best linebacker Christian Harris hasn't played this year and he's on IR. He's going to come at some point, but I'm guessing that the Patriots are going to run Stevenson right up the middle as much as they can. That's what the Bills did with James Cook. Eventually, they stopped it. Allen got outside when they didn't set the edge. He had 53 yards rushing, and that was all in the second half. And that 9 for 30 completion percentage he had was the worst in the NFL in 30 years for a quarterback with at least 30 attempts.
Yeah.
And I got to say this, Karen, excuse me. Sean McDermott helped them win that game with his play calling on the last series to get the ball at your 2-3 yard line and throw with 30 seconds left and throw down the field 3 times in a row, allowing the Texans to get the ball back, have 1 5-yard completion, a 59-yard field goal. I've never seen a coach, instead of running, make them use their timeouts, he just gave them the ball back, put them in position to lose, and he took it all on himself as he should. And McDermott is getting blistered all over Western New York, and really all over the country.
Well, if I remember correctly, he got blistered for I think it was an AFC championship game against Kansas City, right?
Yes, it was.
Josh Allen drove them down, put them ahead. There was 20 or so seconds, maybe less on the clock. And the kicker kicked it out of bounds. So no time, basically, bad and it's tough enough to stop Mahomes, but if you give him time, you know, dead, and they were dead
Well,
after.
you used to see that all the time. You guys got so spoiled up
Mm,
there. I remember when I first started going to Foxborough when the Sullivans on the team in the late 70s. Remember when they were the worst team in the league and they got Kenneth Sims, defensive tackle from University of Texas, and
yep.
they were not always bad. They've been to Super Bowl, but there was a period when they were really down. And then, of course, I did a thing on the NFL Network, and I'm guessing you'll agree with me. It was a thing called What If? What if certain things in NFL had not happened? Well,
Mm,
mine was Mo Lewis. I
mm,
said, what if Mo Lewis had made that hit on Bledsoe? What
yep.
would have happened with the Patriots and what
Mm,
would happen with Brady?
yep. Yeah, it's a great I mean, that's a great what if.
Can't
Uh,
be a better one.
yeah. Um, well, the Patriots team you see on Sunday is going to represent those teams pre-Belichick, pretty much.
I
Actually,
want to see Drake May. What are the
no.
odds?
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. I mean, obviously, you know, Stroud, he started right away, didn't he?
He started right away. They didn't name him. He rotated with Davis Mills, who had started the previous 2 years, and
Hmm.
we knew he was going to start. Then, and they had put together. Nick Casario has done a great job here. You guys know Nick really well. Once he got out from under the Belichick umbrella and got total control, 6-year contract, told to tear it down, start over, and he did. And he has made some great moves.
Hmm.
None better than Deshaun Watson, of course. That trade, which is the gift that keeps giving.
Yep.
And so Nick had put together talent last year, and so they knew that he was going to start, but they didn't announce it till right before the season began because D'Amico is a former player. I think he believes that if you just gift wrap a starting job for a rookie over a veteran who's paid his dues, you're better off letting those veterans see across the team. This kid's better. This kid should play. And considering the success of the other three starters, it's been amazing. They
Hmm.
have more victories, I think I read, through 5 games than any season since
Hmm.
'87. And so I know the fans are, well, okay, let's see if Drake May can do like Bo Nix. I don't think anybody expects Jaden Daniels, but even Caleb Williams got a lot more talent
Yeah.
around him than the Patriots have got around Drake May. But sometimes it's better to take those lumps.
Yeah. Well, getting back to Nick, who, who was a personnel head here under uh, Coach Belichick. Um, he's, as you said, he's done a good job. Like he built the team first or attempted to get the parts first, and then he got the quarterback. It's kind of in the reverse order here with the Patriots. Um, with the number three overall pick, they figured that's their best shot. So they got the quarterback, but they don't have the offensive line. They don't have the weapons. Um, so they've been, very cautious in terms of, I mean, fans are going to see him this year at some point, but the question is when. And I don't think there's an ideal situation for them given the state of the offensive line. Either you're going to put him in there or you're not. And I think developmentally, he needs to see the field and they need to see what he can or can't do as well. Now, you know, Jacoby Brissett has been uh, unbelievably tough. He gets hit and hit and hit and hit, and he keeps getting up. He's also uh, a quarterback who's, he's the lead guy, and he knows that Drake's coming for the job, but he's been a great mentor to the kid as well. And I think, that's been an important part of the equation. But right now, sitting at 1-4, having the worst offense in the league, the worst passing offense in the league, empty seats at Gillette. I mean, wow. There is really a clamor this week for Drake to start. And unlike past weeks, where Gerard Mayo would come out on Mondays and say, Jacoby's 100% our starter, we didn't get that this week. So I think they're seriously considering that move. So you might see him. I think we'll know for sure tomorrow.
One of the things about Brissett, not only did he win that first start in '16, when he was at Indy, he beat the Texans a couple of times. I used to call him the Texans killer because he bounced around the league, but he always seemed to win a game. He didn't play great, but he would beat them. And I know from a fan standpoint, I don't care about seeing him anymore. I've seen him plenty. I want to see Drake May. I used to watch him on the ESPN highlights at North Carolina's game playing for Mac
Yeah.
Brown. And I know everybody up there is pumped about it. You know, it'd be a simple game plan predicated on running. This is a good team to run the ball up the middle on. And but they're a fast defense. They blitz a lot. They don't blitz, they don't do any zero blitzes where everybody's coming. But you never know when they're going up against a rookie. And I asked D'Amico Ryans yesterday, there's a lot of speculation in New England about Drake May making his first start compared to him and a veteran like Brissett. How do you go about preparing for that
Mm.
game? And of course, I got pablum answer about doesn't matter if it's a young guy or an older guy. We'd have to go back and look at his tape in preseason and what he did in college, but we'll prepare for both.
With a revolving door of offensive linemen, partly due to injury, partly due to ineffectiveness, they've really struggled to pick up the blitz. Uh, the Jets, the first two games, they weren't blitzed all that much, but the Jets came, and then the 49ers took a page out of that book and they came, and it's like one of those things. Until the Patriots can show that they can stop it or stop the blitz, I'm sure D'Amico is saying the same thing. Well, I'm going to blitz like crazy. If they stop it, we'll go to plan B kind of thing. So, um, I, there was reports that Drake, in practice last week showed some improvement in recognizing blitzes and picking up blitzes. Um, as I said, it's going to be so interesting to see, does Gerard Mayo finally take charge and say, we're putting the kid out there? And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, once you put him out there, you can't go back. It's like it's now sink or swim time with the rookie. Do you agree with
It
that?
is, of course, unless he gets, say he was playing bad, and then you could say, oh, he's got a little hamstring tweak. We're going to put Brissett back out there. And sometimes it's better when they go to a bench and they watch a little bit, see things from a perspective that they just saw in the lineup, and then they come back and they're better. Even Bryce Young got put back in the game Sunday, and he wasn't totally inept like he was before. He didn't
Yeah.
have to do much. But I think that with Drake May, and this is another thing about Stroud last year as a rookie. They started 12 offensive linemen more than anybody in the league because of injuries. And no matter who they put in there, he still played well because he got rid of the ball. They couldn't run. They averaged 96 yards rushing. Devin Singletary was their leading rusher, had only 3 touchdown rushes by just the backs, but they still won because Stroud played really well and Nico Collins developed into a big time receiver, and all the parts that Caserio put around him, they worked. And I can't overemphasize the job that Casario's done. A lot of people wanting to run him out of here. Oh, it's the Patriot way. We're tired of those former Patriots coming down here and not doing squat. And Nick stuck to his plan because he has it in his contract. He has total control of all personnel. It was his decision to hire D'Amico Ryans. The McNair family wanted D'Amico, but they don't make the general manager do anything. And when he signed off on D'Amico, they're like, that's who we wanted too. But Nick is all powerful here.
Mm.
And that's all I'm guessing after the season, it'll be his fourth, he'll get an extension. And another thing about right at Deshaun Watson announced in his last news conference here the day after the season in 20 that he wanted to be no, in the news conference he blasted the front office, and then a week later Nick was hired. And I'm sure at the time he thought, oh, Watson will get over it. He's just frustrated by a bad season. And then how he navigated that whole thing, no
Mm.
play, no quarterback, private workouts away from the team the next season. And he just did a tremendous job. And and he's well paid. And whatever he gets, when he gets an extension, he's going to make even more. And and I'm sure they hope to keep him. I'm guessing there's other teams that would reach out to Nick, knowing what a great job he did.
Mm.
But the Texans all hope he's happy.
Yeah. And now Deshaun Watson is Cleveland's problem for
Oh,
the next, however, what a.
I'm so glad.
I wanted to ask you about Stefan Diggs as well. Some people, there were two schools of thought about that trade. One, great move by Nick, adding another weapon, taking pressure off Nico. The more the merrier, right? The other school of thought would be because he's kind of a little temperamental, I'll say. He could, not be the best thing, for a young quarterback. It looks to me, at least thus far this season, he's been very good, and a very good acquisition for them.
I heard the Texans, I guess the Bills had put it out there that he was going to be traded. And the Texans were interested immediately. D'Amico Ryans, everything D'Amico wants, Casario tries to get him. That's
Mm,
like D'Amico's big on position specific talent. Like he
mm,
doesn't just want a defensive tackle. He wants a tackle that's playing the right side and the left side. And so they had Tank Dell coming off a season-ending injury as a rookie, in which he was tremendous. They had Nico Collins coming off a breakout year in his third season. They re-signed Dalton Schultz, who played really well at tight end.
yep.
And when they had a chance to get Diggs, Casario was all over it because D'Amico Ryans wanted him, the wide receivers coach. Ben McDaniels, Josh's brother, who's also passing game coordinator, has done a tremendous job here. He wanted him, and Bobby Slowick, the coordinator, wanted him. And so I thought to get him for what they got for a two, and they have that was a Minnesota two. And this is another thing that Casario's done is trading a lot.
Mhm.
Trader Nick, he's always making trades, and he gets extra picks, and he maneuvers them. And so he gave up Minnesota's pick for Diggs, and then they redid his contract and down to a 1 year deal. And I read nationally, oh my God, that was a stupid thing to do. No, you're going to get Diggs on his very best behavior because he is auditioning for a job. He's 30, he'll be 31 next year, and he's going to want another job. And they think that the temperamental, as you call him, which he definitely was, that D'Amico Ryans can navigate that.
Mm,
And I saw a thing at the Pro Bowl. NFL Films had a mic over Diggs and Stroud, and Diggs was talking to him about Houston, about what it was like playing down there, the Texans. And so Stroud warned him, and they worked out together in places besides Houston. At one point, they were working out in Paris. Never figured out why they were in Paris unless they were NFL ambassadors, which Stroud did in several countries. And so the players were so fired up about Diggs, they voted him as a captain. And
mm,
he's been on his best behavior. He has 3 touchdowns, 2 catches, 1 rushing. And when Nico Collins got hurt, I'm guessing he'll be out a couple games. They'll still have Diggs. They'll have Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, John Mechie, the third, still here. So Casario's done a great job of building this team for Stroud before they have to give him, $800 million in another year. And and Stroud can throw the ball to anybody. He tries to work everybody in, but uh, D- Diggs would have had his first 100-yard game against the Jaguars, but 2 penalties wiped out, 2 gains of 15 yards each. And he's been really good. He hadn't infuriated anybody.
mm. Do you see them this year as legit Super Bowl contenders, or are they
No,
still
no.
few years off on that? Yeah.
At the start of after last season, in which they capitalized on a last place schedule, playing NFC South, crossover game against Arizona here. Now they play first place schedule, murderers row lineup of quarterbacks. Crossover game is at Dallas, and they're playing the NFC North, not the NFC South. So the tougher schedule. I thought from the get go it would be 2025 that they would be legitimate. They continue. They've got draft choices. They'll have more cap money, continue to build, that would be legit. They've never even been beyond the second round of the playoffs because every time they've made the playoffs, they've won the wild card game, had to go places like Foxborough, Baltimore, and they always lose. So I want to see them get that second round, get the bye, get the second round game at home for the first time, and then show what you can do. Right now, they have second best record in the AFC behind Kansas City. They should beat the Patriots. I think they're favored by a touchdown, and they've been terrible against the spread, by the way. And so I would think it would be next year. And but here, everybody's you can imagine, Karen, they've gone crazy. I do talk show here, and it infuriates people when I say I don't think they're a
Mm.
legitimate Super Bowl contender. And but the thing is, even the Chiefs have yet to play great. And other than the Chiefs, and I don't think Minnesota, I don't see Minnesota. Wow, Sam Darnold's going to the is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. We've got
Mm.
such a long way to go, and he didn't play well
Mm.
in that victory over the Jets, in which Aaron Rodgers was terrible. So there's not 49ers are down. There's just not a lot of teams where I could say, I could see them playing the
Mm.
Chiefs in the Super Bowl, or I could see them upsetting the Chiefs at Arrowhead. No, the Texans are not there.
Mm. Um, the the way it's set up, obviously your head coach, D'Amico, is a defensive mind. You have Bobby Slowick, who has done a very good job with the offense and might be headed headed to a head coaching job in the future. A lot of people thought, the Patriots needed, given it's an offense-driven league, their head coach needed to have the offensive label. Gerard Mayo, obviously, very much like D'Amico, player, assistant coach, head coach, and they're relying on Alex Van Pelt for their offense. The system for you works, having D'Amico. How much autonomy does he give Bobby Slowick in terms of running the offense?
Totally. He wants to know what's going on. He and Slowick are best friends. As they worked their way up through the 49ers organization, they had a pact. Whoever got hired head coach first would take the other as a coordinator. And in Houston, we just assumed that Bobby's gone after this season. Gerard Johnson, the quarterback's coach, would be the natural one to step up. Both of them had feelers from head coach and offensive coordinator. The McNair family gave them extensions for a lot of money, knowing that Bobby would probably be gone. He wants to be a head coach. He will be a head coach. I think I figured up the other day that 13 defensive coordinators as head coaches. And for all these
Currently,
people,
yeah.
and all these people used to say defensive head coaches are not good. And I'm thinking, well, one of them's got the second most victories in history. He's turned out to be pretty good. Pete Carroll was pretty good. There's a lot of them that have been good. The key is to have a good offensive coordinator and play caller, and then have somebody ready as a quarterback coach to take their place. And it's a smooth transition, and you don't have to go searching around football in the NFL or colleges to try to get the replacement. But it's interesting, isn't it? Miko Ryans, Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, defensive players who are head coaches in the NFL now.
Mm. Well, one of the defensive coaches in the NFL, Robert Saleh, just got sacked in New York. I think there's a lot of curiosity around New England if Bill Belichick would take that job. Uh, Knowing his disdain for the Jets, I'm thinking no. But again, if he wants to coach again, that might be the place for him. And he does have an appreciation and love of Aaron Rodgers, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Is that a curiosity beyond
Oh my
New
goodness,
England, where
yes.
Belichick goes? Yeah.
And considering this, Karen,
Mm.
uh, Kraft hired Belichick to stick it to the Jets, or stick it to Parcells, because they had a huge falling out. So that great announcement on the napkin that he
Yep.
was going to the Patriots. And
Yep.
I remember how he was hated in Cleveland. The
Mhm.
media just hated him. I felt sorry for everybody that covered the Patriots having to deal with Bill Belichick. And so if you wanted to stick it to Robert Kraft for sticking it to you, keeping him from being your head coach, you go all out. But Belichick, on the other hand, if he can deal with Brady, the difference with Brady running things is Brady had the pelts on the wall. Rodgers been to one Super Bowl, and that's it, 2010. That's been so long, I was 100 pounds less. The last
Me
time
too.
Rodgers went to, only time he went
Mhm.
to a Super Bowl. To me, he hadn't earned the right to run a team. Now, everybody's saying sources, Woody Johnson did it on his own. He didn't consult anybody, didn't even talk to Joe Douglas. I don't think that's Woody Johnson. That's not Jerry Jones. I can't imagine he just got up, walked in, and fired him, especially when his offense was so bad against Minnesota. But it just blows me away. You can't turn on the TV without seeing Belichick in a commercial or on one of his shows on the Manning cast, Pat McAfee, inside the NFL, which he's the best on because they let him get up and diagram things. And he's so good at that, as you know. And so he's put himself out there so much. Let me ask you, is that to stay in the limelight so they don't forget about him, even though they never would? Or is that say, I'm gone, I'm done with coaching, I'm going to have fun doing all these things?
No, I think he wanted to resurrect his image. Um, and he is presenting a different image because, he's not grunting and, not answering. And I
On
mean,
to Cincinnati.
yeah,
On to Cincinnati.
it's funny. They asked him about that I think on the Manning cast last night, whatever it was. Um, but he's trying to, you know, it's so funny. He's the second has the second most wins of any head coach in history, and yet he still has to kind of resurrect himself because it didn't end well in New England in terms of, I mean, they won 4 games last year. Post Tom Brady, it's kind of been a progression downhill. uh, his drafting, his, being in charge, putting together a roster that's just not good. So he's come under fire for that kind of stuff. But a lot of people are focusing on the image, his presentation. And I think he's, you know, consciously tried to pump himself up as, I'm not a bad guy, you know? So, we'll see where that goes. But I think there will be jobs for him. And I think the situation is important. I think he'll want an established good quarterback, a good defense, or a team that's not far off from winning. He's not going to go somewhere that's a rebuild, but, a pretty much ready-made team where you might think having his coaching expertise uh, on the sidelines will push a team over the top. That could be the Jets. That could be Dallas, depending on how things go there. That could be Philadelphia, how things go there. And I guess Jacksonville might be in the running as well. So,
Hey, if
but
there's a God, it's got to be the Jets just because of the history, the
mm,
division, and they got a great defense. The running game should be better. It's the quarterback who's not playing well.
yeah,
But how long is he going to play? Does Belichick want to go out down there because Rodgers is such a weirdo that does he want to coach somebody like that or Dak Prescott, who's the salt of the earth? And the
yeah.
Cowboys are good, except they got no running game and they got injuries on defense. But it would ooh, it would have to intrigue him for an opportunity to go to the Jets. You got to have a strong general manager
Mm,
because he- he- if if Joe Douglas wants somebody and Bill Belichick doesn't, you can't take him. You
mm.
got to do what Belichick wants done. Now the key is, would he bring back all his staff? Would he? He says I
Good.
don't have to have total control, but how many GMs are going to say, Bill, we're going to do this?
Yeah.
And he'll say, well, I don't think we should do that. No, Bill, we're going to do this. Not
Mm.
many.
Yeah.
Scott Pioli told me one time at one of those early Super Bowls, he said, I'd be stupid not to go along with whatever Bill wants. He's Bill Belichick.
Mm. Well, getting back to something you said about Nick, basically, getting players that the coach want, that was Pioli's job way back when. Bill, he knew the type, Pioli learned the type of player that Bill wanted, and he was always scouring for that type of player. And again, we're not talking about superstars, we're talking about people that fit the system or fit the Bill profile for a player. And that's basically what Pioli shopped for all of those years. And it worked, I would say. Tom Brady helped that a lot. But as I said, Belichick had a type that he liked, and Pioli just kept feeding him that type of player. So I think it's kind of carried over to Nick. And I'm glad he's you know made things happen and put together a good program and built a good roster for the Texans. It's good to see for him. And of course, people in New England are saying, why can't we get GMs like him? So, anyway, John, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And I guess we'll see what happens on Sunday. Um, and again, you can read John at HoustonTexans.com. And good luck. Are you coming to town or not?
Nope. In my job, the last 2 years since I retired from the Houston Chronicle after 45 years, I hate traveling. I hate going to the airport. So I cover the home games, then I cover the others off TV, and I like it so much better. I got to tell you, I love Boston, but not having to come in and stay where I usually stay at a Marriott in Boston and fighting that drive and the traffic down to Foxborough, I will not miss it.
Well, we'll miss you, John.
Thank
Anyway,
you. Have some chowder for me.
I will. Take care, my friend.
All right, Karen. Thank you very much.